My name is Matthew Stibber. I'm founder and CEO at Articulate Marketing, and today I'm delighted to introduce my colleague Ioana Negulescu, who is Head of Creative Innovation here. And over to you, Ioana. It's your presentation.
Thank you very much. So, hi everyone, and welcome to today's webinar about how to use lateral thinking to write memorable website copy. But first, let me introduce myself. So, my name is Ioana. I'm Head of Creative Innovation, as Matthew already mentioned. And effectively what I do is I lead the team of creative designers and developers. I have delivered over 100 projects across branding and website design and development. An important thing here is my superpower is not copywriting. Stick with me. So if you're here today for a masterclass on how to craft words, this will not be it. But I do love to write, and I regularly write for a food magazine and my weekly newsletter. However, the important thing here, my superpower is usually seeing connections that other people tend to miss. I'm a creative problem solver, and basically my comfort zone is finding solutions where other people normally get stuck. I'm also very deeply passionate about experience design, which in my view should become a bigger topic in this day and age, hence the confetti. And I really hope that this webinar will give you food for thought and a few frameworks you can apply when writing copy for websites or beyond. And I will start by saying, don't waste your afternoon making your website copy memorable. Decent will do. It loads, it reads, and nobody complains. I don't have an exact stat for this, but I have worked on over 100 website projects, and my gut feeling says about 80% of them were blue when they arrived at Articulate. Now, the thing is, every one of these companies made a sensible, defensible, and very decent decision. And they did that independently. They all arrived at the same place. And here's the thing, in color theory, the color blue means reliable, trustworthy, calm. That's pretty much everything a tech company wants to be, right? Now, there's so much sameness in the world. And why is that? Well, that is pretty simple. Most people are scared of what they don't know. It's actually called neophobia. But the interesting thing, when everything looks the same, the only thing anyone remembers is the odd one out. And this has now become an important law of user experience. So here's my question for the next half an hour. What's the equivalent of blue in your copy, and how can you make it truly stand out? I have a challenge for you. Are you able to remember one single line that you read on a website or anywhere earlier today, word for word? Because honestly, I can't. And I imagine your answers would be the same. I think that says a lot about where things are. We go through choice paralysis on a daily basis. Think about it like this. You go to the supermarket, you want to buy a jar of yogurt. You have 15 brands, and each of that brand has 15 different lines of types of yogurt, high protein, low protein, high fat, low fat, etc. So from choosing your yogurt up to picking the right company to work with, there is so much choice paralysis. This is just a very quick revision of what I covered in a webinar a couple of weeks ago. It was a webinar on writing with UI UX laws in mind, and you can find it at articulatemarketing.com/webinars. People don't read, and this is the most important thing on the internet. People don't read. They are lazy by default, and what they do instead is scan. Think about it like this: when you open a website, would you actually read every single line, scroll all the way down to the page, and once you've finished reading the page, you scroll back up, you go to the next page, you read every single line all the way down? When was the last time you did that? In terms of scannability, people also read in an F shape. So that means they read the headline, they read the first line, and then they kind of scroll down the left edge, mostly because on the right-hand side, our brains have gotten used to seeing ads. So this data is consistent and comes from eye tracking tests that have been done over and over again over the past 20 years. And most people read the heading and nothing underneath it. So if you spend a lot of time writing the perfect body copy, you might lose an opportunity to catch the visitor with the headline. They read the title, they skim, they read the next title, they skim, and then they go to the bottom and then out. And one important thing that we'll cover a little bit later as well, and it might sting a little, is, as I just said earlier as well, ad-shaped things become invisible. And this is called banner blindness. And it is our brains that have gotten used to seeing so many ads that it's almost become subconscious that we ignore them. On average, people spend 10 seconds on a website before deciding to leave. This amount of time, the amount of time it took me to say that one sentence. If you survive past 30 seconds, your odds improve a lot. But the main question is, how do you actually earn those 30 seconds? So everything that I mentioned in my previous slide is the absolute bare minimum that you need to do. People do read when things are clear, but the main question is, how do people remember you? And here's the premise. The premise today is we're not looking at a scale of decent, good, and excellent. Decent is AI with a bit of human touch. It's prosaic. It's like all the sameness that we see around us, or the toothbrush that we had a year ago. Do you remember what color your toothbrush was a year ago? Good is writing something, sleeping on it, editing the next day, letting it sink again, coming back to it the third day and finishing it. Excellent is really good. It takes longer to achieve. But memorable, well, memorable is so much more than excellent, because memorable is a feeling. And I want to use the word memorable specifically because of that, not excellent. You can be a really good student and pass all your exams and still not create memorable work. Speaking of memorable, you see this. And I bet the moment you do, your brain automatically fills in the gaps. You see the bitten apple, apple in rainbow color from, well, Apple. See, in 1997, Apple was close to bankruptcy. And most people would say that it would be completely mad in that context to start being clever. But they launched this campaign. This campaign had no product, it had no feature, it had no price, 2 words and 1 image, think different. The other thing is, IBM's slogan at the time was think. Apple took their rival's word and turned it upside down. And that is lateral thinking in 2 words. And I have gone through this presentation multiple times, and whenever I cover this part, I get goosebumps. There is something deeper in that campaign. It's not about an image and those 2 words. It is about how it makes you feel and how you identify. It makes you feel like you are forward-thinking, innovative, cool, intelligent, and most importantly, different if you buy an Apple product. And this is the bar that I set for this webinar. There's a book called The Power of Moments by Chip and Dan Heath, and it talks about experience design. As I said, something that more of us should focus on. Because the thing is, AI has unlocked a lot of brain space where we can automate some of the boring tasks and become efficient in others, so we can actually focus on creating, designing for memorable experiences. Now, what they say in the book is we don't remember experiences as a whole. They say we remember a handful of flagship moments. For example, the peaks, the pits, the transitions. If something bad happens throughout an experience, you tend to remember that more strongly than the kind of calmness that was happening around it. And the thing is, these peaks, pits, and transitions are what eventually average out in terms of how an experience is memorized. Daniel Kahneman also wrote about this kind of stuff. He wrote about the peak and end rule, effectively the start and the end, which define how people remember experiences. I really liked this particular quote from the book because there's something about the forgettable flatness of every day that feels very easy to remember and also inspirational enough to want to avoid. So another question, how do you make sure your web copy isn't forgettable flatness and instead creates a moment? So I love to cook. And a couple of months ago, I researched how to capture the super complex aromas in lime blossoms. The thing is, there's lots of volatile compounds and lots of different molecules, and it's all quite complicated. But I learned about a thing that is quite common in aromatic plants that requires a certain process to be able to free up those aromatic molecules. And that thing is called enzymatic release. And I started getting very nerdy. I tried to make sense of the concept. I was reading academic papers on then looking at super complex diagrams, being very lost in the whole thing because I kind of just wanted to double check that I understood the concept. Basically, it goes like this. There's two aroma molecules and they're chained together. And in that state, they're odorless, basically invisible, useless. And through a very specific type of fermentation, in comes an enzyme, this superhero, that is able to, through its chemical powers, to snap the chain. And the moment that chain snaps, those two molecules are free to release their beautiful aromas. I was going to publish a Substack on the topic, so I wanted to make sure I understood it correctly. And so I described it in writing exactly the way I did to you just now. And then I decided to distill it further and describe it in the 10 emoji that you see on the screen. Question to you, have you ever tried explaining what your business does in just a couple of emoji? And ideally no more than 10, because if you go above 10, there might be something that you're missing in terms of distilling. Or have you tried to explain what you do to a 5-year-old? So again, in very, very simple terms. And there's science around the fact that understanding comes from the ability to distill information in very, very, very short, snappy sentences or concepts. And this is the best starting point for your web copy, especially for your homepage hero banner, which is a very, very important area of your website that needs to very clearly say what you do and give your visitor enough of a hook to want to spend more than 10 seconds on your website. We've all seen this photo from the World Cup, right? I hope so, because it went viral for how aesthetically pleasing this design of the Norwegian t-shirts was. But there is a lot more to this design than just aesthetics. It communicates a couple of very important things. It communicates the ability to work together by being connected with the connected lines. It communicates being and treating each other equally. It communicates being calm and composed, again, because you've got lines and everything is organized. And it communicates being strategic. Super simple, but it says a lot. And what I'm trying to say here is never, never underestimate the power of images. because the best piece of copy will come hand in hand with an image. Think about the Apple campaign posters that I showed you earlier. Imagine if you took Think Different with the rainbow apple and put a stock photo of two people with a handshake. It would not be able to communicate the message as strongly and actually deliver it properly. So don't be afraid to put in the extra time, to spend a little bit of extra budget or spend a little bit of extra time to do this properly, especially in areas that are so high impact, like, for example, the homepage hero banner. And you can work with a designer and a copywriter in parallel and get them to collaborate so that the end result is one that works as a whole, not copy and image, and each of these works by themselves. I'm going to go into a couple of different frameworks that you can use and a couple of little exercises. And I will start with Edward de Bono, who is the first person who coined the term lateral thinking, and that was back in 1967. And one of his core points around how to think laterally is provocation. He called it PO. And effectively, it has 4 steps. Step number 1, take the page you're stuck on to write copy for. Number 2, say something deliberately wrong, absurd, or impossible about it. Number 3, do not judge what you just wrote. Ask only, where does this take me? And number 4, harvest the real idea that your statement uncovers. So, for example, let's imagine you're an accountancy firm. The PO version of what you do will do your accounts wrong. Ridiculous, right? But it provokes a real question. What if accuracy isn't the value that our customers need the most? And what that leads to is a sentence along the lines of, anyone can file your accounts, we'll tell you what they mean. Or if you're a security software, the PO version, it says, our product does nothing, which provokes, okay, nothing happening is exactly why somebody wants to hire us. So the result can be a line like, nothing happened today, you're welcome. The thing is, this framework suits people with no time very, very well. It takes 30 seconds to run. It doesn't require any copywriting talent. It just requires a little bit of brain dump. And the only thing you need to do is suspend judgment, not judge what you're writing for 1 minute until you find that truth in the absurd. Also, Edward de Bono, second tool, which is deliberately introducing something that is unrelated, because your mind is incapable of leaving two ideas unconnected. And I did this earlier in the presentation. I bridged fermentation chemistry and writing homepage copy. Did that feel odd to you? Also, the thing is, the title of this webinar came from a similar story. I pitched it to my team. I had no clue what the content would be, but I'm passionate about lateral thinking, and I'm passionate about writing memorable copy, and I knew I would be able to find a bridge. What you can definitely do is take your product and take the first random object that you can see in the room. I've got my coffee cup here. And try to build the bridge. Try to create a connection between your product and that random object. And this is an exercise you can run to create analogies, to create stories about your product that are easy to understand. Now we move on to Rory Sutherland, another great source of inspiration for me. He's the vice chairman of Ogilvy. And he's definitely worth one line of introduction because he is the behavioral science person in advertising. So he's not a marketer. And he wrote a book that's very interesting called Alchemy. He has this idea that he calls psychologic, that people don't run on logic, that making things that work for people is not through complex engineering. It's actually by influencing perception. And the cool thing about this is that perception often relates to feelings. So for example, what he found out is delayed by 20 minutes on the platform board reads like a punishment, whereas arriving in 4 minutes is information. It's also dynamic because the time reduces. What happens is, even though the wait is identical, the experience that you have is completely different. The reason why Uber became so popular wasn't necessarily because the pickup was faster, but it was because you had access to a map where you could see where your driver is. And you can watch the car coming, so the waiting feels more active. So you can rewrite a couple things for yourself with this perspective in mind. So I'll give you a couple of examples. They need editing. Request a demo could turn into book 20 minutes, no slides, no deck. We'll be in touch shortly, can turn into you'll hear from a human within 1 working day. Expectations, think about expectations. Join our team can turn into 3 interviews, 3 weeks, and you'll hear either way. And basically the pattern is building this countdown board, giving people something that they can hold on to so that they understand what happens after they hit send. 1962, and Avis, I actually don't know how you pronounce it correctly, the famous car rental was losing money for 13 years. He was a distant second to Hertz. Instead of hiding it, they led with this. So they said they're number 2. Why go with us? Because we try harder. It makes a lot of sense, to be honest. Not only have you admitted you're second, which shows quite a strong level of confidence, but you have also communicated that by being number 2 and not number 1, you are more likely to put in more effort. Kind of similar to Marmite, love it or hate it. It's true, most people either love it or hate it, but those who love it feel very special through that tagline because they are part of the people who love it and not the part that hate it. So one thing you can do for yourself is list every cliché in your sector and write the exact opposite of each and keep the one that's actually true. And of course, edit. So for example, instead of saying trusted by industry leaders, you can boldly say we only work with 8 clients, and that is on purpose. Instead of enterprise grade and scalable, you can say built for teams under 50 people. If you're bigger, we're the wrong choice. It's the obvious, honest way to communicate. So this is the Marmite exercise. Write the line that puts off the customers you don't want. And if nobody's repelled, nobody's attracted. Come on, we need to stop being people pleasers. Here's a callback to earlier, with the difference between very good and memorable, and that difference being feelings. This is where you create these feelings. Most companies want to write copy as they want to tell the story. But the real value comes when you write the story with your audience not in mind, with your audience front and center, thinking about how busy they are, what their patterns are, how many pages would they want to see on your website. What happens if you write the copy from the perspective of the company? You risk losing your audience. The copies can become too long, information too dense. You kind of want, as an internal person, you kind of want to communicate all the amazing things that you do. But what ends up happening is effectively cognitive overload. You probably heard of IDEO. They're the guys that coined the terms design thinking. They built an entire discipline around this, and it's called human-centered design. Very, very cool stuff. And the premise is that everything they design, every solution, everything comes from where their audience is standing, not what you would like to let them know. So they focus on a clear framework where they research their audience. They distill what they learn in a couple of different insights, and they turn those insights into a question, which usually starts with what if, or how might, and then start generating solutions. And also their ways of brainstorming are very similar to De Bono's points around deferring judgment, encouraging wild ideas, building on people's ideas. So empathy here isn't an option. It is a very, very important driver. At Articulate, we never design websites without a strategy project beforehand, because we want to understand who you are, what you do, and everything about you, including your audience. And as part of that, we typically also run a branding questionnaire, internally and externally. And one of the key findings is how people perceive you. So the words that they use to describe you. And that can help a lot when developing the language that you use on your website, keeping those words in mind and keeping that tone of voice in mind. And this is not a strategy exercise, actually, it is an exercise in empathy. And as I said before, empathy produces feelings, and feeling is what gets remembered. One of the final bits that I want to show you today, it's an important one and is a trap. It's a trap. Imagine you have a lead capture that you want to add on every single page, and that's totally fine. At the end of the page, you want to add your book a meeting or book a demo or whatever it is. The easy solution is to write one piece of CTA copy and paste it on every single page, but this is bad. Not only does this make this bit invisible, because your brain will kind of start seeing that it is the same over and over again, but also it does not become memorable, and it does not showcase any sort of empathy or context. So what you should do is bring context. So this way your visitors will feel like you are trying to give them more. So again, empathy, and the likelihood of clicking is much higher. It's the same when you launch a new campaign, a new white paper, flagship report, whatever it is. Make sure that the copy, the CTAs and the copy of the CTAs points to those bits and is contextual to the page it actually sits on. And this is the bit where I'm supposed to sell you something. Instead, I will just say that if anything in the past 29 minutes made you quietly open your homepage in another tab, my recommendation is to book 30 minutes with Matthew. Matthew is our CEO, as he introduced himself as well, and I know time is precious for all of us, but he's happy to share 30 minutes of useful insights and listen to you, and he's coming with 25 plus years of marketing experience. Surprise, Just 3 more slides and I'm done. This presentation has no body copy. And what I urge you to do is to focus on these next time you write web copy. We know people scan, and they will certainly at least read the headlines. This is a certainty, at least the ones at the top higher up on the page. So what you can do is turn those 10 critical seconds into the 30 that increase your chances of people staying on your website by focusing 80% of your time on headlines. I know it sounds like a lot, but it is crucial. And out of those 80% of your time spending on headlines, spend half of that on writing really catchy, good, value-driven, empathy-driven hero banner copy. Of course, I was joking at the beginning when I told you not to bother and just to be decent. So I hope this webinar has made you think about how you can make yourself memorable. I'm leaving these 3 books here because it would be too obvious if I did a summary of what I just presented to you now. Alchemy by Rory Sutherland, Lateral Thinking by Edward de Bono, which comes with lots of frameworks that you can use, and The Power of Moments, which has lots of nice illustrated examples of how companies and brands design experiences which you can then take and apply to your website. Thank you very much.